Good afternoon. It's Monday, December 8th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The Syrian government is demanding that the United Nations Security Council impose deterring sanctions on Israel for what they said were 2 attacks by Israeli warplanes yesterday on targets in Damascus and the border with Lebanon. Israel is not officially commenting on the reports. We get more from IBA's Ari O'Sullivan.
This is the only footage which purports to show the attack, a rare daylight raid, according to reports from Syria. Israeli warplanes reportedly struck 2 targets in a total of 10 sorties. Syria says 2 military installations were damaged, one near the international airport in Damascus and the other in the town of Dimas near the Lebanese border. Syrian anti-aircraft batteries fired 2 missiles at the attacking planes but failed to intercept. State-run Syrian TV initially put out a laconic statement blaming Israel for the aggressive attack, in which there were no reported injuries. The Syrian army put out a more detailed statement linking the attack to the civil war, saying it was in the framework of extending help and support to the armed terrorist groups in Syria. The Syrian Foreign Ministry said it would seek from the UN Security Council deterring sanctions against Israel for its attack. This is not the first time that Israel has attacked Syria, according to foreign reports. In May 2013, Israel attacked targets near Jumraya, and the destruction couldn't be hidden. This time, like the previous ones, the apparent targets were weapon warehouses aimed for Hezbollah. Reports in Lebanon say the targets were S-300, sophisticated anti-aircraft missiles that had recently arrived from Russia. These rockets would pose a serious threat to Israel's aerial supremacy. If the reports are true, it appears that the defense establishment is continuing with its same defense line regardless of the internal turmoil in Syria. While Israel has made an official no comment on the strike, it has announced in the past 3 red lines that it would not tolerate. The first is any action against Israel on the Golan Heights. The second is any attempt to transfer sophisticated missiles and chemical weapons outside of Syria. And the third is transfer of strategic balance-changing weaponry to Hezbollah. Also, it comes as the world no longer is supporting the toppling of Assad and actually attacking his enemy, ISIS. So Assad has good reason to refrain from responding to the Israeli strike, for now. Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Turning to politics, and today is the last day of the 19th Knesset, as the second and third reading of the motion to dissolve the Knesset will take place later this evening. Elections for the new Knesset are set for March 17th. Here with more is Eli Wagalanter.
Good evening. We'll start with political party news and the latest uproar inside Likud. Danny Danon submitted his candidacy today for the party leadership, becoming the first to challenge Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the party primaries. The Central Committee chairman said the party has gone astray in the last few years and that it's time to both talk right and do right regarding national security and socioeconomic issues. Right-winger Moshe Feiglin and former Interior Minister Gideon Sa'ar are weighing their candidacies, with primaries scheduled for January 6th. Pro-Sa'ar Likud activists are urging the former minister to officially register before the December 14th deadline. So far, there's been no comment from Sa'ar. As for the Knesset, barring a last-second surprise, this 19th Knesset, elected less than 2 years ago, is about to enter the history books. Sometime this evening, it will vote itself out of existence and go into recess ahead of elections in 99 days. Toward that end, the campaign has already begun. On its last day, a Knesset gripped by election fever began with a frenetic, emotional meeting of the Knesset Finance Committee. The meeting constituted the final moment for corrections to the 2014 state budget. Once the Knesset dissolves tonight, no legislation and therefore no changes to the budgets can be passed. Passions flared over last-minute allocations to defense and settlements, including the funneling of some 3.6 billion shekels to the Defense Ministry and 130 million shekels for settlement needs. Labor MK Stav Shafir argued that committee members hadn't received any notification from the Treasury until 6:50 this morning. Opposition lawmakers tried to ask questions of Treasury officials at the meeting, but the questions gave way to shouting matches even before officials could respond. Shafir herself was thrown out of the committee 3 times. The chaos led to MKs admitting that they voted without knowing what they were voting on. I asked 2 members of the committee to explain what happened.
We got at 7 a.m. all these transfers, this request to transfer hundreds of millions of shekels to the settlements. It's against all the rules of the Finance Committee. It's against all logic. The Prime Minister and Zambish is a leading member of the settlements. He told the Prime Minister, "You want us to vote for you in the primaries? Give us these hundreds of million shekels, or we won't vote for you." And he, as he's doing always, he gave up and he just taking the money out of the pockets of each and every woman and man, children and elders of the Israeli citizens, take the money outside of their pocket and taking it out to the settlements, just throwing it all to the garbage.
We have said we will not topple the government now until the elections. We have said that before. We're doing this now also with the voting in the Finance Committee, especially the things that are going now are for defense, which we always supported, and also for the other things which the former finance minister brought it to the Finance Committee. It's nothing new here. So the only thing that's changed is the Yesh Atid is now in opposition all of a sudden.
What the Finance Committee revealed was the first indication of how a new post-election Netanyahu-led coalition might look, with Yesh Atid out and United Torah Judaism in. And Prime Minister Netanyahu also showed where that coalition is going. In his speech delivered this morning at the Globe Business Conference, Netanyahu promised he would remove the 18% value-added tax on price-controlled groceries, a move, he said, that would help Israel's neediest citizens far more than Yair Lapid's plan for a 0% VAT on some new housing. I never liked that idea, said Netanyahu. He also promised to double the grant to discharged soldiers. Meanwhile, the Knesset House Committee approved the final wording of the bill for dissolution. Once the bill passes in the second and third readings, which are held consecutively, the Knesset will be dissolved and the election campaign will officially be underway. I asked some MKs about their feelings on the last day of the Knesset.
Actually, it's sad. I would prefer that the coalition will continue to function. I don't think election is the right thing to Israel right now. But since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Treasury Minister Yair Lapid didn't get along, we all need to go to election. We'll do our best.
Are you concerned about all the talk about deals being made with the ultra-Orthodox parties, etc., with Likud? What's going to happen after the next election?
No, in politics you can never know. So we need to do the best, the best way we can, and then after that decide which coalition the people in Israel choose. Not right now. It's not relevant.
Also approved for second and third readings by the Knesset House Committee was the new infiltrator law. MKs are expected to vote on the new version of the law at this hour after the High Court nixed a previous version of the law. Meanwhile, in the halls of the Parliament, the campaigns are already in full swing. Election fever has set in. Laura?
Thank you, Ali. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry were back-to-back speakers at the Saban Forum of the Brookings Institute, currently underway in Washington. Netanyahu spoke via satellite link, and both men addressed the stalled peace process.
The talks ended because the Palestinians wanted them to end. The talks ended because President Abbas, unfortunately, chose a pact with Hamas over peace with Israel.
I won't give up, but I hope it's going to take less than a miracle. And I believe it can. That's my personal belief. Now, I fully recognize that to most people living in Israel, Gaza, or the West Bank today as I speak, the idea of peace sounds dubious at best and impossible to many. I understand that. But I cannot tell you, notwithstanding, how strongly the United States flat out rejects the notion that peace is a pipe dream. In fact, the need for a two-state solution is even stronger today than it was a year ago.
Both leaders also related to the nuclear talks with Iran.
None is more important to our common security than Iran's ongoing pursuit of nuclear weapons. The November 24th deadline for an agreement has come and gone. That's fortunate, because a deal was not signed last month that would have effectively left Iran as a threshold nuclear power. And even though Israel isn't part of the P5+1, our voice and our concerns played a critical role in preventing a bad deal. Now we must use the time available to increase the pressure on Iran to dismantle its nuclear weapons capability.
As of now, with significant gaps still remaining, we do not know if we will be able to make it. But we also know for sure that a negotiated settlement, a negotiated outcome, if it meets our standards, is the best way to account for and close off all of Iran's potential pathways to a nuclear weapon. And in recent weeks, we have seen new ideas surface, flexibility emerge that could, I repeat, could help resolve some issues that had been intractable.
In more local news, police have arrested several suspects in last month's arson at a Hebrew-Arabic bilingual school in Jerusalem. The Petah Tikva Magistrates Court lifted a gag order, allowing the media to report that the suspects were arrested some days after the arson attack at the Hand-in-Hand school. The number of suspects and their ages have not been released. 2 first-grade classrooms and a playground were damaged in the late-night attack on the school, where vandals also spray-painted messages that read, "There is no coexistence with cancer," and "Death to the Arabs." The 5 hand-in-hand schools across the country educate over 1,000 students and aim to create a strong, inclusive society in Israel through bilingual education in Hebrew and Arabic and integrated Jewish-Arab classes. Much more oil spilled as a result of the burst Katza Trans-Israel pipeline than originally thought. According to the Eilat Ashkelon Pipeline Company, some 5 million liters of crude oil spilled as a result of the Arava accident, and not the 1.5 million liters originally thought. Katza said that until now, some 2 million liters of crude oil have been vacuumed, and 13 tons of contaminated land was collected and moved. The Environment Protection Agency is working around the clock to clean as much of the spill as possible before an expected storm tomorrow that could be accompanied by flooding, with fears that the contamination could reach the Eilat beaches. Dams with pollution absorption equipment have been built around the Evrona Nature Reserve to prevent the contamination from spreading. The world's largest ever equity crowdfunding summit will kick off tomorrow in Jerusalem. Some 600 investors and executives from over 20 countries will take part in what is being billed as the largest global gathering of its kind. Just ahead of the conference, IBA's Eli Wagalanter caught up with the summit organizer, Our Crowd CEO, John Medved.
We're going to be hosting close to 700 crowdfunders from around the world in the world's largest gathering of equity crowdfunders ever. Crowdfunding is a very hot topic. Basically, people gather together over the web to put money into projects or companies. Equity crowdfunding, which is what Our Crowd does, is providing an ability for investors all around the world to invest in the next hot Israeli startup. We're looking for the next Waze or the next Mobileye. We find those deals, we then bring them to Our Crowd. Generally, we do this over the web, so it's in a virtual world. But next Tuesday, we're bringing that virtual world into the real world here in Jerusalem. We're going to have 36 companies presenting. We have hundreds of people coming from abroad. So far, it's actually in 21 countries and counting as of now, where people are showing up. And what it proves is the enormous attraction from the investors in the world of the startup nation.
What is the attraction for those people?
Well, first of all, to make money. In other words, this is not a charitable operation. We're about making money for ourselves and for our investors. But people are captivated by the story of Israel and Startup Nation. They've seen so much innovation, so much great technology that's not just making money, but also helping mankind. And we're investing in companies that are changing the way that water is used. I was talking to you before about a company called Varigate, which uses smartphone applications to control irrigation and save water. We've invested in Rewalk, which is the world-leading company now in exoskeletons. It allows paraplegics to get up out of their wheelchair and walk again. That company went public on NASDAQ after we crowdfunded it. It's become one of the most successful IPOs of the year. We've invested in a company called Site Diagnostics, which is changing the way that malaria is tested. We're invested in BillGuard, that helps consumers avoid credit card fraud. We've invested in a company called Consumer Physics, who make the incredible little SIO, which is a scanner for all matter. It's like Google for matter. It'll tell you how many calories are in your shake, or whether somebody, God forbid, put roofies in your drink at the bar. And all of these companies are going to be here on next Tuesday presenting to these 700 people. We've got also dozens of venture capital funds who are looking for their ability to invest. What we do is we take this beforehand, rather sort of clubby, closed-door kind of like insider group funding exercise where, you know, if you wanted to be in the flow of the next big technology startup, you had to know somebody, right? You had to be Yossi Vardy's friend or Hemi Paris's partner at his venture capital fund. But now we're taking this sort of closed environment, we're opening it up for the entire world of investors. We've now got 6,000 investors who are registered on our site. We're adding 50 to 100 each week, and we hope that this is going to really bring huge amounts of money and attention to Israel's startup scene.
How do you know when a company is going to be successful, or how do you judge the potential for a company?
Well, first of all, you never know. Okay, the reality is this is called in Hebrew hon sikun, or risk capital, actually more correctly, danger capital, because this is very, very high risk stuff. Therefore, what we do is we advise our investors to not just choose one company, but to build a portfolio. Pick 10, pick 20, better yet, because when they hit, these things are huge, right? They can return 10 or 20 or even 50 times your money, but often they don't hit, often they don't make it. Now, what do we look for? We look for that special spark in the entrepreneur's eyes. We look for experience where the people have been there and done that. We look for great, deep product expertise. We're looking for fast-growing markets. We're looking for other people who are smart investing alongside of us, and we look for traction. We look for companies that are actually making it. We don't want guys to come in here with a bunch of slides and say, back me. I want companies that are making it, that are growing, that are already, changing the world, and I want to join them and help them move faster and better.
A new exhibition at Antwerp's world-renowned Mass Museum hopes to create a trialogue among Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in the wake of recent anti-Semitic incidents in Belgium. We get more about the collection in this report from IBA's Norit Finger.
The landmark museum between the city and the port is an extraordinary building in its own right. Antwerp's Mass Museum aims to tell the story of the city's people with diverse populations and attitudes, who come from a multitude of backgrounds. A new exhibition under the title Rome, Mecca and Jerusalem in Antwerp sets out to do just that. Fighting the current spiral of mistrust and conflict growing along the city's streets outside the museum, this ambitious exhibition compares the three world religions to show the common ground between them rather than the differences.
Every time we have an intifada in Palestine, then we have a very small intifada here with the Muslim community. It's not that violent, but people want to manifest against the violence that's happening in the Middle East. We are not very proud to say that Belgium has some 200, 300 Muslim young people who went to Iraq and to Syria to join ISIS. I think we have to invest in them. We have to make them clear that their future is here, that ISIS is a violent terroristic group that they have to leave aside, and that ISIS is not a solution.
More than 200 works of art and historical treasures are displayed next to each other so that they could be easily compared. Illustrating the pilgrimage to sacred places and discovering the shrines holding a magnetic attraction over the pilgrims throughout the centuries, Sacred Places, Sacred Books provide a unique insight into the form and content of the Tanakh, Bible and Quran. The exhibition will run until January 18, 2015. With a clear contrast to religiously motivated disputes, this educating display attempts to lower the flames and bring a peaceful message to all peoples of the world. This is Norit Finger for IBA News.
Local Christmas cheer is already underway. Hundreds of Palestinians and pilgrims gathered in Bethlehem's Manger Square this week, where Christians revere as the birthplace of Jesus, for the annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah also attended the ceremony as Bethlehem Mayor Vera Baboun lit the 15-meter tree amid cheering from the crowd under a special fireworks display across the starry skies.
The message of Bethlehem is specifically in this year that we have the solidarity year. We urge all the people through our message that we need that solidarity because we only need on this Christmas justice.
The World Short Course Swimming Championships wrapped up last night in Doha, with another Israeli reaching a final. David Gamberg is undoubtedly the success story of the five-member Israeli squad, with appearances in a final in the 200-meter backstroke and the semifinal in the 100-meter backstroke. He also set two new Israeli records in the process. The 21-year-old Gamberg finished in the 8th and last place in the final with a time of 1 minute, 52.24 seconds. The event in Qatar passed without diplomatic incident. There was speculation that the identifying Israeli flag was erased from the results of Guy Barnea in the 200-meter butterfly qualifiers, but it turned out that a technical problem with the color transmission made it difficult to see the flag, and there was no intent on the part of the Arab host to conceal it. Staying with sports, and it was a nail-biter in the Premier League basketball game between Hapoel Jerusalem and Hapoel Eilat at the Pais Arena in the capital last night. The Hoopsters from the capital suffered their first loss in league play this season after 9 games, and it was a dramatic defeat. With 14 seconds left on the clock, Eilat was leading 85-82 when Hapoel's Bracy Wright evened the score with a three-pointer. It looked like the game was headed into overtime after Eilat's Cliff Wyatt lost the ball to Jerusalem. But in the final seconds of play, Eilat's Brian Asbury managed to catch a bad pass from Jerusalem's Yotam Halprin and run to the hoop. Turning to local finance, and the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were down. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and the forecast is calling for a significant drop in temperatures tomorrow, with local rain predicted across the country. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad. And that's all for this newscast. Please join us again tomorrow at this same time when Aaron Viner will be here with all the latest news from Israel and abroad. I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.